If you've ever struggled with getting enough qualified leads, getting cheap enough leads, getting booked calls for a good cost, or converting those booked calls, this video is going to solve all of that for you once and for all, guaranteed. And I can promise you that if you watch through this video in its entirety, you're going to get more value than you've ever gotten from any sort of media buying course that you've paid $5,000, $10,000 for. This information is literally the cornerstone to our marketing. For reference, my name is David Wehner. I run a performance marketing agency, and me and my partners and my team have over the last 3 years scaled over a dozen offers to a 7-figure run rate and plenty more to a 6-figure run rate. It's because after looking at the data, we can literally pinpoint exactly what's going on in the prospect's head, what's going wrong with the marketing, and what's going right. And when we know what problems are happening and why they're happening, they're a lot easier to solve. And so you're about to learn that exact process from me right here today. Now, if you don't want to have any sort of guesswork and you don't want to have to figure this out on your own, there's a link in the description below you can book on to speak directly with me and my team. We'll come in, identify all the bottlenecks for you, make sure it's done right from day one, and we'll also show you what needs to be implemented to solve that. So if that's you, go ahead and click that link, just schedule a call and we'll take care of everything for you. You don't have to worry about it, you don't have to guess, you don't have to deal with it. But if you're just looking to learn and you're looking to understand these concepts so that you can apply them yourself, this video is going to go extremely in depth for you. I'm not going to hold anything back, and you're going to be able to take all those pieces and apply them and get amazing, amazing results. So trust me, take the time to stick around. Don't be the guy that clicks off because there's no hyper editing. This information is extremely tangible, extremely useful, and I've seen people literally double their ROAS overnight once they identify these bottlenecks. But we've got a lot to cover. This intro has been long enough, so without further ado, let's dive in. So the first thing you need to understand is that with Facebook's new algorithm update, Andromeda, there are two key things that stand out over anything else that will make your ads perform. And so the first thing is the messaging needs to be on point, right? We have less control of our targeting, and so your messaging is going to be what determines who Facebook puts your ads in front of, and that's also more crucial in terms of actually getting them to convert. And the second thing is the creatives. So Andromeda is favoring more alternative variations of creatives, and in the messaging, it likes you to target a more niche group of people. So as opposed to going broader with your messaging and then just doing a bunch of similar creatives that have worked in the past, they want a lot more variation, a lot more variability, and they also want more specific people being targeted by your ads. So even though we work top down in terms of reading data, we actually have to go bottom up in terms of understanding these concepts fundamentally. So we're going to start with link click-through rate. So this is your link clicks divided by the impressions on your ad times 100. That's what makes up this number. And what link click-through rate is basically telling you is how good is your messaging for your audience. It means your ad is driving people to your destination, and it also means there's a strong interest in what's being offered. Now, sometimes what can happen in an ad is that you actually are getting in front of the right people, but the type of offer you're doing just does not resonate with them, right? And so your click-through rate is going to drop whether you're hitting the wrong people and they're not engaging. It's also going to drop if your offer is just not something that interests those people. For example, if you're hitting, a high leverage CEO who has a lot of things on their plate, they may not want coaching on very basic, small parts of their business. They might just want a done for you solution. Now, benchmarks are a little bit risky to give because obviously it varies a huge amount industry to industry. I've seen the average CTR for link click through rate be as high as 3 or 4% in certain industries. But for straight cold traffic, the average across everything's going to be really 1 to 1.5%, can get as low as 0.5% in very, very niche markets. Retargeting ads are a little bit different. It's going to be generally between 2 to 5% on average. This is when you hit someone who's already been marketed to either by your organic or by ads they've already seen, and you're retargeting those people through the pixel. Obviously, you have a higher average click-through rate because that person has already seen some of your stuff before, so they're more likely to click through. Now, fundamentally, in any sort of campaign I launch, I do message testing first. So what I'll do is I'll set a small budget, as I said here, and I'm basically looking for the highest click-through rate. So I'll do the same creatives, and when I'm testing our hooks and headlines in my ad, I'm going to do the best possible creative I can kind of guess will work, right? But without doing any creative testing first, I'm just looking to see when someone stops and views the ad, what has the highest click-through rate? What type of messaging works? And when I decide what I'm using for my hooks and my headlines in my ad, I'm looking at problem aware, solution aware, product aware, and most aware. Those are the states of awareness I hit first. And I just want to see which one's getting the highest click-through rate, which one's resonating the most. It also gives me an idea of the sophistication of the market. And so just to stop and recap real quick to make sure you understand this, link click-through rate is the number of people who stop and view your ad and then actually click through to the landing page or the learn more section. They're doing this because something about the offer resonated with them, right? One, you're hitting the right types of people, but two, you're offering something that's interesting to them. And it also means that you're hitting the right state of awareness based on where they're at in their journey, whether they're more problem aware, more solution aware, more product aware, or just aware of your brand in general. So remember, if your link click-through rate is low, that means there's an issue with your messaging to the audience. If the next metric is skewed, though, this can actually push your link click-through rate down, even if it's not a messaging issue, and that's CTR all. So the next piece of data being CTR All, let's break down what it is and also how to actually read it. So first thing is CTR All is pretty straightforward. It's all clicks divided by impressions times 100, right? So instead of with link click-through rate, the number of people that actually click through, right? This could be clicking anywhere on your ad. So this could be your profile name and picture, hitting see more in terms of the text on Facebook, right? It could be reacting to it or commenting, and then it could also just be thumbs up rate on the image. Now, what this is primarily indicating is how good of a creative do you have in your ad. It's telling me overall engagement and curiosity. And even if the messaging doesn't resonate, it means that this was interesting enough to them that they stopped and looked at it and read a little bit, or at least stared at the photo for a second. Now, there's going to be two scenarios that you're going to generally run into. You're either going to have a high CTR all with a low link click-through rate. And what this basically means is that your creative is pretty good on your ad. You're able to get people to stop scrolling. It hooked their attention. Something caused them to pay attention. But if your link click-through rate is low, it means your messaging and your ad is wrong. So going back to link click-through rate, right, something didn't resonate, whether it was you're grabbing the attention of the wrong market or you're getting in front of the right market, but just not giving them something that feels like it's applicable or interesting enough for them to actually want to buy it. This means your messaging needs work, and it also means you're not creating enough desire to learn more. The other bad scenario is you have a low CTR all as well as a low click-through rate. This means that your creative most likely is not grabbing attention, right? And either your hook, creative, or targeting needs to get improved. And most of the time, I'd say 90% of the time, it's your creative that's the issue. So if you have a low CTR all, switch out your creative, something's not working there. Now, another really important note between these two. Your CTR, your link click-through rate, is only relevant based on your CTR all. So for example, you could have a 0.5% CTR when you really should have a 1% CTR, and you're like, oh, well, it's half of what it should be. My messaging isn't resonating. But if your CTR is, let's say, 2.5% when your KPI is 5%, you're actually artificially driving down your link click-through rate. Now, those are the two bad scenarios. The good scenario is you have a KPI CTR all and a KPI CTR. That's obviously the ideal. That means your ad is working and the creative and messaging are working well with your audience. So just to recap super quick, link click-through rate is going to be the messaging, right? When someone stops and sees your ad, does it resonate enough with either them as a market or as a solution that they're like, yeah, this applies to me, let me learn more, let me click through? That's the first piece of data we're looking at. And the second one, CTR all, is people that stop to even consume your ad in the first place, right? The KPI we're generally looking at for CTR all across all industries is roughly 5%. I've seen it go up to 10, 15% in some sort of retargeting and very, very hot industries. But on average, it's going to be around 5% as your KPI. Again, look at previous winners in your industry to kind of get an idea for your specific niche, what you should be looking for. But while CTR applies to your hook or your headline of your ad, just the core of the messaging, your CTR all is generally going to be talking most about the creative. Does the creative grab enough of their attention to stop the scroll? So the next thing we run into are CPMs, which is the amount spent divided by impressions times 1,000. This is less of a performance metric, but it is a performance indicator, right? So it's not a metric on how well your ad is resonating, but when you see higher or lower CPMs, it can indicate a couple of things. So it's still really important to understand. So CPMs are just how much does Facebook charge you to show your ad 1,000 times. And there are three main things that affect your CPMs. So the first thing is going to be audience competition. So it's how many advertisers are targeting the same people within your sort of sub niche, right? And so it's a little bit of a bidding war. If a lot of people are trying to get in front of a small group of people, they're going to cost more. So for example, generally higher quality people that have more money, like a doctor or a dentist, is going to cost more than people that are generally making less money overall, because less people are trying to market to them. The next thing is ad quality and relevance. So this one's actually very interesting because more native looking ads generally will have lower CPMs, right? So if it looks more like a Facebook post and less ad-like, so when I say ad-like, I'm talking about like the super hyper Canva graphic-y looking ads. When it looks more native to Facebook, looks more like a natural post. One, those generally actually get our best CTR alls. So a little piece of sauce, like the more natural photos that people are like, oh, this is just could be posted from somebody in my niche, right? For example, for roofers, a guy on a roof taking a selfie. Those generally perform better, but it's also rewarded by Facebook for being more engaging by driving down the cost to get in front of 1,000 people. And the last point is optimization in terms of the quality of people you're getting in front of. So higher quality, right? Generally having more money and having a history of buying more online are going to cost more in terms of CPMs. So sometimes if your CTR all and your link click-through rate are solid, then having a high CPM is not actually a bad thing. It can sometimes indicate you're actually getting in front of the right types of people. Think about it. Facebook charges more for people who are likely to act as opposed to people which are just going to view and like the post. That's why engagement ads, by the way, are cheaper than conversion ads. So general rule of thumb, if your CPMs are low, Facebook's finding it easy to serve your ad. You're getting in front of people who are engaging well. And if your results are good, then scale that. You want low CPMs if your results are good. If your results are bad, though, that might be pulling cheap, low intent traffic and more similar to an engagement ad. And you want to relaunch because you want to make sure you're at least getting in front of the right types of people. Otherwise, of course, your offer is not going to convert them. On the other hand, if your CPM is high, you're either targeting a competitive audience. So, for example, a niche that makes a lot of money. The high ticket space is generally going to be a little bit more expensive. And if the rest of your metrics are good, that's generally what's causing it. The other thing is your ad quality score is low, right? People are skipping, not engaging. And so if the ad is not engaging, Facebook's going to charge more to push it out. And if it falls into bucket 2, which your ad quality score is low because your other metrics are skewed, then you either want to refresh your creative, test new audiences, or improve the relevance. But most of the time, you just need to refresh your creative. So just a reminder, your CPMs are not a direct KPI of how your ad is actually performing. So it's not the same as CTR or CTR All, but it is an indicator, right? You can tell, hey, am I generally getting in front of a higher quality audience or a lower quality audience? Or are people just not engaging with my ad very much? Or does Facebook not like the way this ad actually gets in front of people? Is it too ad-like? They're going to charge more for that. So those are key indicators to have. If your CTR All and your CTR are good, but your cost per click is high, it's an issue with your CPMs, and you want to look at that and see, hey, are people converting? Then I'm willing to keep paying these more expensive CPMs. Or if people are not converting, then there may be an issue and I need to refresh and relaunch. Now, this next section is going to be very quick, so I just want to talk about frequency. It's the average number of times someone sees your ad. This is less important than the other ones, but I think it's useful to understand, right? So a high value means your audience is overexposed, right? You generally want to keep this under 2.5 in terms of your frequency for a cold traffic audience. If it starts to get too high, it generally means your ad is fatiguing and you need to relaunch. The only exception to this is with retargeting ads. You intentionally want a high frequency. For example, if you're going to run like a hammer them campaign where you're retargeting with, a lot of information focused stuff to warm them up, then you want that frequency to be high, right? You're retargeting intentionally. But other than that, you don't want your frequency to be too high because it means you're paying extra money to get in front of the same people over and over, especially if the conversions start to drop. Then you're just paying to get in front of people who have already seen your ads multiple times and said no, and you're paying more to get in front of people saying no. Obviously, we want to get in front of fresh people at that point. So pretty straightforward, but just an important one to understand. All right, we're working our way up. What if we're getting good ad metrics but bad conversions on our ad? Now, reminder, this is why we work top down, right? If you're getting a poor ROAS, right, but your ad metrics look great, obviously the ROAS is more important than your ad metrics, right? And so you could have great CTR All, great CTR, great CPMs, but it could still be very, very expensive for you to acquire a customer. That's why top down is important. But let's dive into actually looking at what's going on if you still have bad costs but good ad metrics and how we fix it. So there are two potential scenarios if your ad metrics are good, but you're not getting conversions. So the first one is that you have good converting traffic coming in, but your funnel is doing poorly. And the reasons a funnel does poorly is generally it's incongruent in the messaging. The load time is bad. This one's a killer. A lot of people can have a great funnel. They'll test all these different funnels and their load time is just bad. And so it takes like 5-10 seconds for the funnel to load. People that have intent will just click off because it's just not loading for them, right? A messy looking landing page can be a big one, or high friction, right? They don't know where to start. They don't know where to consume, and they don't know where their eye should go. And so it's not clear. That's the first scenario. The other one is your ad can be getting good costs, but you can be getting curiosity or low intent click-throughs, right? So for example, if you ran engagement ads, you can get a lot of clicks, but then those people don't actually convert, right? And so it can be a little bit tricky telling which one of these two it is, but I'm going to go through those two scenarios and kind of explain them a little more in depth respectively. So first one, strong ad, bad funnel, right? These are people that should convert, they're qualified, but your page is actively harming the ad, right? So the ad performance is great, you're getting from the right people, getting good costs, but when they get to the funnel, it actually throws them off. And so this at its core is landing page incongruence. They were expecting one thing when they clicked through on the ad, right? And they were expecting the right thing from the ad, but then the funnel did not line up well. That's the first scenario. The second scenario being a weak ad but a good funnel. People are clicking, but they're not ready or even the right types of people. And even though your page layout is solid and your messaging on your funnel is right, your ad is doing wrong messaging. And so this is an ad mismatch. It can be poor audience quality. It can be too curiosity focused. It could be clickbaity ads, those sort of things. So I'm going to give you the 5 main things that it normally is if it's an issue on the funnel side. And the first one is message mismatch. If the ad is promising one thing, for example, a software, and the landing page talks about something different, like coaching, you're going to have people that come in with intent initially and then they're thrown off by it. So If the alignment of what you're talking about isn't there, or if it's clickbaity, that of course isn't going to work. Now, this can also be a little bit more nuanced. For example, it can be like the tone or the way that you're speaking in the ad, where it's a little bit more humorous, and then they get to the funnel and it's like ultra corporate. They're going to be thrown off by the misalignment. Or if your ad talks about thoroughness and understanding of markets, and then they get to the landing page and it's just super bare bones, that can throw them off too, right? So the expectation of how they feel and what they're expecting to see when they click on the ad versus the landing page, when there's incongruence there, that can cause people to bounce and throw off your numbers. The next thing is a weak offer, right? So they come through, they're interested, but then the book a call or sign up doesn't feel worth it for them. So a big thing when someone books a call, can't just be positioned as like a sales call unless they're pretty sold already. What you want to do is you want to give them some sort of value that they're actually going to be getting when they take the action, right? So you need to either build more value for the low ticket product or whatever the product is that they're buying, or you need to set the right expectations of here's the value and here's why it's worth your time to book a call with our team. You're going to get value in blah, blah, blah way. For example, booking a call with me, right? Our team's going to go through, identify all the data points, and literally problem solve everything for you. I've had people say, hey, like this call was worth more than like paid consultations I've had, right? But obviously, we're also going to talk about potentially working together. So I'm not just saying, hey, book in, we're going to sell you, come buy our stuff, right? There's actual like a high level of value that you get from speaking with me. And that's why people book in, right? Same thing here. You need to have like a valuable call to action. So the next thing is poor page structure or clarity. So the load times, I've already mentioned that, and a messy layout, right? This one's a killer, right? If they get to the landing page and there's stuff that's relevant to them, but they have no clue where to start, they get information overload. You increase what's called cognitive load for that person. They have to think very hard to go through your stuff, and you don't want that to happen. You want things to be very simple, very streamlined. And so just make sure that your funnel is not too busy, right? There's a clear path for their eye to follow. They know exactly where to go next so they can consume the information in an easy to consume sort of bite size, bit by bit, going through the funnel. Remember, if people have to think too much, they generally just leave. Next is low trust or lack of credibility. So social proof is extremely important, right? If you don't have any sort of social proof on your funnel and it's very bare bones, they might be like, well, this guy has no results in the past. I don't want to take the time to speak to him. That one's super straightforward. And the last one is the wrong stage of awareness, right? So if you're getting in front of problem aware people, right, and then they come on the page and you're instantly talking super in depth about the product and you're not tying the problem into the solution, into the product, you're going to have people bounce. So when I run campaigns, I have different funnels, different VSLs, and different texts based on the level of awareness we're hitting, right? So if I'm hitting an organic audience, it's going to be a very different type of messaging, very different way of speaking to them than off of a straight cold audience, and vice versa. So next, let's talk about issues on the ad side when the funnel's good, but your ad is driving cheap people, right? Good costs, a lot of click-throughs, but just people with the wrong intent. So this is a helpful chart that you can use to kind of tell, if it's an issue with the ad or if it's an issue with the landing page. So they're coming on and there's a very, very short duration, right? If they didn't even read, likely an issue with the ad with wrong audience or low intent. It could also be load time issue, or it could also be if your funnel's extremely messy, that can cause them to bounce. Now, if they stay on for a little bit, they do a little bit of reading, but they don't go all the way through, that can often be a congruence issue. They start reading, they're like, oh, this isn't relevant to me, and they bounce off. If you have an extremely high bounce rate, generally it's a wrong audience or an expectation mismatch. And then if they scroll down far, right, and then they don't convert, it means that they were interested, but the offer is generally the issue. And if they don't scroll down very far, it kind of goes back to this one, right? They started reading it, realized it wasn't relevant, and then they bounced. So use this to kind of gauge if it's more, you can kind of gauge what the issue is, and you can tell if it's more of an issue with the ad or the funnel based off of that. Now, here are the things that actually cause people to click through, but also have the wrong sort of intent and intentions coming to the page. So first one is clickbait or mystery hooks, right? If you leave it too open-ended and they don't know what they're clicking through for, they're just gonna click because they're curious. And then once they realize it, they're like, oh, that makes sense, and then they leave, right? And so that's obviously an issue in itself. Next one is too broad of targeting, right? If you're hitting people that are too broad or they have specific problems, but you're offering too generalist of a solution, that can be an issue as well, right? You want to speak to specific problems in your ads. This also is going to make your ad perform better. But when you're speaking to specific problems when they come to the landing page, you want it to speak to their soul and feel extremely relevant to their niche situation. Next is if your offer isn't clearly positioned, right? This is kind of playing into too broad of targeting, right? If it doesn't say who it's for and say who it's not for, people are going to have questions of, does this actually apply to me? Is this relevant to me? Versus if you very, very clearly express it, this is for this type of person and here's what we solve, they're going to be a lot more likely to keep that person engaged because it's relevant to them. And finally, lack of specificity, right? If you aren't describing in detail what you're actually doing for them, right? And then you get a lot of people that are curious about conceptually what you're doing, but not actually buying or implementing your solution, right? And so you get people that are curiosity clicks instead of relevance clicks. So a couple key things to ask yourself: does the headline on your landing page match what the ad promised, right? Are they getting what they expect? Does the tone and language feel consistent, right? You don't want to have like a humorous, joking type of messaging and then go to a super corporate-y feeling landing page. And then lastly, does the offer or CTA make sense for the audience that's coming in, right? People come in expecting one thing and they end up getting a different. There's incongruence, and that's not an audience quality issue. That's an issue with the landing page. So just to recap, you want to make sure your messaging is relevant, right, to your target audience. If it's a landing page issue, meaning you're getting the right types of people from your ads, but they're not converting, then you want to make sure you're mirroring the headline and promise, right? Clarify what happens next. Don't make it too confusing or increase cognitive load. Show proof, right? Testimonials and case studies. Make it easy to follow, right? With a clear layout and a simple call to action so they know exactly what to do if they're interested. And then last thing, and this one can be a kicker, make sure your load speed is good. You could be doing nothing wrong. If your load speed is bad, people will bounce. And on the flip side, if your landing page is good, clear, and simple, right, then to make sure you're getting the right people, show who your ad is for and what it solves, right? Be clear about the offer. Don't make it too mysterious. Narrow your targeting on people who have actually engaged with things similar, right? So make sure your messaging is going to apply to someone that would likely buy your solution, and then use intent filters. This one's less important, but if you're having a lot of issues with this, if you're like in a niche like BizOp, where you have a lot of people that are just sort of curious but not actually serious, you can sort of make it clear, hey, this is not for you, unless you are serious about making money online, serious about starting your agency. So just to pause for a second and recap, make sure you're hanging with me on everything. Remember, first rule, we want to look top down, right? We want to look at the most key metrics, which is your ROAS and cost per acquisition. If there's an issue there, then we want to work our way down to find where the bottleneck is. That's the most important thing. Then when we look at our ads, there are three main metrics we're looking at. We're looking at our link click-through rate, which is how good is your messaging? Is it resonating with your audience? Is it clicking with them? Your CTR All, which is how many people from your audience are stopping and even viewing your ad. If not enough people are viewing it, then of course people aren't going to click through. And then lastly, your CPMs, right? Are you getting in front of a quality audience? Is your ad relevant and engaging enough? Is that going to make your CPMs lower, right? Are your click-through rate and CTR all good, but are you getting in front of a very expensive audience? You want to understand how all of those work together. Next, once we have your clicks in order from your ad and we're getting people to your landing page, then we need to look at conversions on the landing page. And the main rule here is congruence, right? Make sure that your landing page gives what they're expecting from the ad, because if it's not, you're going to bounce those people and you're going to lose them, even if you're getting in front of the right people. And the key thing to remember is there's a difference between getting curiosity clicks, where there's an issue with the ad, even though it's cheap, it's not getting the right people, versus getting good clicks, but your landing page is incongruent and just not converting them. And when it's a landing page issue, you want to look at those 5 things that we laid out and see which one of those applies for you. And now the final thing we're going to cover is show rate, right? So once you get good costs on your ad, you get a good number of people booking. How do we make sure that the number of people that book that end up showing is high? Because if they're not showing, none of this earlier stuff even matters. So show rate, how many of your booked appointments actually show up to a call? Right. So what a low show rate means is that they're interested but not enough to book. They're not committed enough to show. This is usually an intent or nurturing problem, right? It's not normally a lead quality problem. It's that there's not something that they're expecting to get on the call that's of enough value for them to take the time to show up or remember it. So there are going to be 6 main things to look out for if your show rate is bad. And I'm going to go top down in terms of most common and most crucial. And you want to look at all of these, of course, but the top ones are going to be the most important. So first is low perceived value or urgency, right? So if they don't see value in the call, they don't feel like they're actually going to get something good, they're not going to show up no matter how many reminders you send, no matter how soon the call booking is, no matter if they know exactly what they're getting on the call. If they don't want it, they're not going to take the time to show up. This sometimes happens when someone's like, yeah, I'll book a call they're just curious about how the funnel works and what they're going to get, but they don't actually intend to show up. So first thing is make sure that you have a high perceived value and add some urgency, right? A reason they need to show up, right? Otherwise they'll never be able to get access in the future, limited spots, whatever, so that it actually like resonates and clicks in their mind, right? Some people will intentionally not show up, and obviously that's an issue. Other people will just, it's so unvaluable in their head, they're just so much just let me see what they do, that they completely forget about it after booking, and it's not intentional, right? So that's why urgency and a high level of value, they expect something on the call that's going to click more, that's going to resonate, and that'll make sure that they actually remember to show. Next is a weak confirmation flow, right? So again, right, even if something's, this is not an issue if it's super important, super urgent in their mind, they're going to remember it anyways. But for the people that are like, oh, this sounds cool, right? They might intend to show up, but then if it's not on their calendar and they live off their calendar, right, of course they're going to forget, or they don't get any sort of text or email reminders. So having a strong confirmation flow where immediately after on the thank you page, you have them watch a video, tell them what to expect on the call, have them make sure that they add it to their Google Calendar, sending them texts in advance, sending them emails in advance. All of that is going to remind them consistently, oh yeah, I got that call on Tuesday. Oh yeah, I got that call on Tuesday. And it's going to make them way more likely to remember and actually show up when Tuesday rolls around. 3 is too much time in between bookings, right? Interest will fade within 3 to 5 days. That's normal, right? Don't let your calendar book out more than honestly 2 days in advance. Like the only time I let it book 3 days out in advance, and that's why our calendar is open 3 days in advance, is if someone wants to book next Monday on a Friday, right? But I don't want to leave too much time, because at that point there's no point in them even booking. And I rather someone be like, I can't find a time in the next 3 days, let's not book, than have people that are qualified and have enough intent booking out and then forgetting, right? So I always set it to a maximum of 3 days out that they can book on. Really, you want people to be booking on 2 days out. Next is confusion about what the call is, right? Someone might book in because they're kind of excited about it conceptually, but then they get uncertain about the call. They're not sure what to expect, right? And a combination of things come up, other things that are important may pop up. They're not willing to keep that time slot blocked out. If they're uncertain about the call, they can't have that high of a level of intent. There's just a much higher likelihood that they prioritize something else or just forget about it. So you want to make sure that it's very clear what's going over on that call, what they could expect, and what value is going to be delivered there. Next is weak pre-qualification, right? If you have zero friction to book a call, you're going to have more people book in that don't actually have serious intent, right? So if you have a lot of those coming in, add a couple qualification questions, right? For example, what made you book, right? How soon are you looking to have this solved, right? It's going to make them kind of admit to themselves, hey, I actually have intent here. There's a reason I'm booking this call. It's not just to get more info. And then the last thing, and this one is sort of like loading speeds on the landing page, right? Wrong time zones and tech issues. That's actually a pretty common one, right? If texts aren't sending, even though you have a good pre-call sequence, if they're not clear on the time zones, whatever that may be, right? Those tech issues can be absolute killer. So make sure you get those sorted as well. And there it is, guys. That is reading data in a nutshell. This information has been so incredibly, unbelievably valuable for me and my agency. It means when someone shows me an ad campaign or just like a front end funnel, and they're like, I don't know what's going wrong, what needs to be fixed, I can instantly identify it by looking at the metrics top down. Once I find the main bottleneck, I then know, hey, this is something related with the ad creative, or hey, this is something related with the landing page. And then I can go through my sort of my files of knowledge and be like, okay, looking at this, knowing I know it's a landing page issue, right? Okay, what could it be that's causing the landing page issue? That's a lot easier than knowing that, hey, there might be an issue with the ad, there might be an issue with the funnel, there might be an issue with your pre-call sequence. I have no clue which one it is. And now I have to go through, dozens and dozens and dozens of more potential solutions and be fixing things that don't need to be fixed. When you know exactly what's causing the issue, one, if you have no clue how to solve it, you can just test. But two, if you generally do know how to solve things, you are targeted on, hey, this is definitely a landing page issue. Okay, let me apply my knowledge here, and it's a lot easier to solve that problem. Now, I hope you guys got an enormous amount of value. 2 things I want to mention before you go here. So first off, a whole lot of you guys are not subscribed. If you got some sort of value from this video, you got something useful, please take the time to subscribe, ring the bell, leave a like, and drop a comment, especially if you had a good takeaway or a question. I'm good at responding to those, and obviously seeing you guys subscribe and seeing you guys like and seeing you guys comment, I know that these videos are actually affecting people and helping people and are valuable for people, and it makes me want to put out more for you guys. The second thing is, if you want help with reading your own data, you're a little bit still uncertain on how to apply this, I know there's a lot of information in this video, you just want my team to do it, click that link below. You can book a call with us. We'll go through, we'll solve everything for you. And more importantly, you can identify the bottlenecks, but knowing what to do to solve them once you see the bottlenecks is the even trickier part. And that's what our team can do for you. We have an enormous amount of experience across a bunch of industries. If you have a problem, we will 100% know what the solution is and know how to implement it for you. And lastly, if you got a lot of value from this video and you're just wanting to learn a little bit more about how to run ads and how to properly structure campaigns, this video is going to go extremely in depth for you and give you all the useful pieces of information on how we create hundreds of ads, create all these different variations, and how you can do that too without wasting a bunch of time filming. With that said, I hope you got an enormous amount of value, and I will see you in the next one. Take care.